Many thanks for making a day today with me. Welcome back. The country's total debt stock continues to rise, which could be described as worrying. Latest data from the Bank of Ghana shows that our debt reached 215 billion cedis ending November 2019. George Duafe has been going through the economic data released by the central bank and has filed this report, which also captures other issues.
The data by the Bank of Ghana showed that in 2 months, that is from September 2019 to November, the debt stock had gone up by 6.4 billion Ghana cedis to hit 215 billion Ghana cedis. Now, if you look at the debt stock, it represents about 62% of the total value of the economy. Now, more than half of the debt was secured from outside the country, which is worth about 112 billion Ghana cedis. According to government sources, the increase was due to the city's marginal depreciation and some fresh bonds that were issued to deal with maturing debts. Now, if the debt is shared among every Ghanaian, then you should be owing about 7,163 Ghana cedis. The IMF recently warned that the country's debts are reaching levels that could soon result in it being classified as a debt-distressed country. But when it came to other sectors of the economy, it appears the country was doing well in terms of improving its export earnings, as it reached $15.6 billion ending December last year, while it spent $13.3 billion to finance its imports. On the banking side, there were a lot to be excited about, as deposits, assets, and total advances were increasing to hit some fresh record levels, while the non-performing loans in terms of industry ratio was also reducing. The Bank of Ghana also ended last year with a total international reserves of $8.4 billion, meaning the central bank was able to add $1.4 billion to its reserves, as it promised last year that it was hoping to build its reserves by this amount.
All right, now, so we want to go to the central bank now, because the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has kept its policy rate unchanged. The committee kept the lending rate at 16%. This is the first time for this year and the sixth last year. Addressing journalists at a news conference a while ago, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, said the policy rate was kept because of some threats to the economic and inflation outlook.
In the last quarter of 2019. Global growth is now projected to rise from an estimated 2.9% in 2019 to 3.3% in 2020 and 3.4% in 2021. The key risks to the global growth outlook are geopolitical tensions between the US and Iran, and worsening of relations between the U.S. and its trading partners, with the rising threat of protectionism and vulnerabilities in emerging markets. The outbreak of the coronavirus poses a new risk to the global economy, and its impact is yet to be assessed. The Brexit finally takes effect today and is not expected to adversely affect the global economic outlook. Headline inflation in advanced and emerging market economies remained contained throughout 2019, reflecting moderated wage growth. In response to the low inflation environment, central banks in major advanced economies pursued accommodative monetary policy to support growth. For instance, the major central banks, the US Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank, either kept or cut their policy rates in the second half of 2019. These policy actions contributed significantly to favorable global financing conditions, with positive effects on capital flows to emerging and developing market economies as investors search for higher yields.
All right, so that was the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, a while ago addressing the press. Let's get to the Bank of Ghana's premises now live for some updates, and my colleague George Riafe is standing by. George, we understand the governor has also been speaking about our reserve position and the cedi's stability. What exactly has he been saying? Hello, George, if you can hear me. We understand the Bank of Ghana's governor has also been talking about Ghana's reserve position and the cedi's stability. What has he been saying about these? All right, so it looks like we're having some challenges reaching out to George Riafe at the Central Bank because he's been monitoring the Monetary Policy Committee's meeting today. The Monetary Policy Committee has maintained the policy rate at 16%, citing some positive outlook in the economy. We'll reach out to George live from some updates when we get through to him finally. But before then, a recent report by the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems GIPS has indicated that more corporate private sector institutions in the country prefer the use of bank checks to payments of goods and services. According to the report, there was a drop in the value of transactions for the year 2019 as the volume of transactions increased by more than 1%, mainly from corporate bodies. Charles Aite hit town to sample the views of a section of the public on what their preferences are regarding the mode of financial payments for goods and services.
Whenever it comes to transacting business in Ghana, many customers, many corporate entities are torn between three choices: to go in for the cash, to go in electronically, or to issue out checks. Well, we will be engaging most of these people here at Rich in Accra to answer these three questions for us. Which do you prefer? Whether or not you go in for cash, you go in for check, or you go in the electronic way. I saw that you take electronic. Any reason why you take electronic?
Yeah, I prefer the electronic because it's very convenient. Moreover, people will not see that you are even processing money with you. And when you are moving free.
And what about the check and cash?
The check, when the check gets missing, you are in trouble. The cash too, it attracts armed robbers on you. So eyes will be on you. The check, I have been a victim before, so that is why I prefer the electronics.
What happened with the check? What happened?
Someone gave me a check. So when I was going, I was in a short car. It's unfortunate, it gets missing, and I couldn't trace it back.
With the e-switch, I have to go and
so
then
that one was even electronic, right? But why don't you prefer cash? Why don't you prefer check?
Well, with the check, sometimes you go to the bank and then they'll bounce the check and all that.
You chose the check,
yes,
and you chose the electronic one. Any reason why?
There is a reason. Sometimes the check is reliable, simply because you have control over it. The electronic, sometimes you don't have control over it.
How don't you have control?
Yes, the network can fail.
Do you have any personal experience?
Oh, recently MTN suffered some sort of, how do you call it, electronic defects. I mean, I don't know what it is called in their own language. But you realize that it affected everybody. You even on your phone, you want to send money to somebody, the network is, actually giving you a problem.
Okay.
So even though it's quicker, convenient, but sometimes it's not reliable.
Okay.
But a check, you sign the check, you give it to the person, he goes and cash the money.
But I realized that you signed X for cash. It means you often don't like the raw cash.
Exposes you to a lot of risk
for yourself. So you don't like check, right? Okay, so you take the X for that one. And what about cash? No, you don't like cash. Okay, you just take the X for that one. So first of all, why don't you like cash?
Well, because I think with the electronic, it's stress-free. You wouldn't have issues with fraudsters. Okay. Yeah.
And what about the check? I saw you take an X for the check.
You would have to queue.
You don't have the time to queue.
No.
Okay, and what about the cash?
Well, you see, you would have to carry a lot of money on you. I think the electronic way is much better.
Yes, man.
With a check, I spent a lot of time at the bank queuing and a whole lot.
And what about the cash?
Cash, Charlie, the pockets.
All right, so you could see the results for yourself. When it comes to the segment of the cash, you realize that most people are not going in for that one. So many crosses indicating they are not in for transacting business in raw cash. Only one person decided to go in for that particular one. With the checks, you realize that most people are just not going in for the checks. You just have one take for the check, which was from a gentleman who explained the reason why. Now, with electronic payments, it was very interesting to see that out of the 7 people that registered their interest in these particular question segments, only one decided not to go in for the electronic payments. Now, I'm going to share for you the reasons why. For the cash, most people are complaining that it's not safe to carry cash on them, and the volumes of money that they often transact businesses with doesn't give them the permits and the free will to carry such huge amounts of money on a daily basis. Hence, the reason not to go in for the cash. Now, with the checks, interestingly, most people are also complaining that the torturous experience at the banks, having to have yourself in long queues in order for you to have your check accepted, is just not comfortable for them and just not easy in transacting business. But with electronic payments, interestingly, we got the understanding that it's fast, it's convenient, and it's much more safer, despite issues regarding fraudsters, as you could see for the gentleman that took the X there. Now, all these answers on this particular board gives us a clear understanding of the recently launched GIPS report that indicates where Ghanaians are laying their trust when it comes to payments of money. And we realized that with electronic payments, it was on the top of the charts. And what it means is that so many Ghanaians are registering their business transactions electronically. I'm Charles Aite reporting for Joy Business.
Well, so we can now go to the Bank of Ghana, where my colleague George Rafe is standing by for updates at the Monetary Policy Committee's meeting. George.
The office of the Bank of Ghana, where a while ago the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, actually held a press conference, having the Monetary Policy Committee met to actually review development in the economy. And at the end of this press conference, the governor announced that they're actually keeping the policy rate at 16%. Now, for this year, this is the first time they're keeping the policy rate unchanged. And if you count back from last year, it might be the 6th time. What were the reasons, Mr. Yaf? He talked about the fact that there are some threats to inflation outlook as well as economic growth, and they want to more of wait and see before they react. So to be more of a little bit cautious, let's hold the rate right now. At the next meeting, if we think that things are very good for us, they would actually bring the rate down or increase it. But for now, they want to hold the rate at 16%. What other issues that came up? Well, you remember recently there was a report about some discrepancies between what the IMF has put out with respect to the country's total reserves, so international reserves, and what the Bank of Ghana has put out. The governor's explanation was that because they are no longer under an IMF program, when it comes to determining what goes into our international reserves, it looks like Ghana now differs with the IMF on the approach. The IMF believes that you should not add the petroleum reserves, but government believes that you should add the petroleum reserves in terms of determining international reserves, and that is where there was thus a disagreement as to what can be added or not, and that is where that report came out that it looks like there have been some discrepancies with respect to the international reserves. What the Bank of Ghana has put out, that is this 8.4, and what the IMF believes that it should be somewhere around $5 billion. They also talk about the Ghana cedi and how the cedi has actually fared so far for this year. The governor explained that it's been a mix of some policy interventions, improved supply of dollars, and that is why in the long while we've seen the cedi actually appreciating against the dollar. In the first quarter of the year, normally we witness some serious pressure where the cedi starts the year actually depreciating against all the major trading currencies. What you have realized this time round is that both the cedi is actually appreciating against the British pound, the euro, and the US dollar. On the eco, Mr. Yafe, the governor also explained that it looks like it might be a long way to get there because they believe that some of the critical conditions, the preconditions that should be in place for the eco to be introduced this year, they are not there. And unless those issues are addressed, he's afraid that maybe it might not come on this year. So these are some of the issues that come up at the MPC Policy Committee. And also the ECHO, practically, he actually tried to explain to us that there are some critical conditions that should be met. And as we speak right now, those conditions have not been met. So it looks like it might be difficult for them to go ahead and subscribe to the issuance of the currency that is this year. Until all those conditions are met, there's a bit about headquarters, there's a bit about convergence criteria, there's a bit about who actually is going to back the currency. Would it be Ghana or Nigeria? And if all those issues have not been addressed as at now, it looks like it's unlikely that we might have the currency being issued this year, Mr. Yafe.
All right, thank you very much, George Riafe, for that update from the Central Bank, where the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has kept the policy rate unchanged at 16%. Now, away from that, Invest in Africa Ghana, an NGO with a portfolio of over 2,000 SMEs, says the support services sector led in a number of businesses that survived and made gains in 2019. Some of these companies will pick up various awards in the 9 different categories tonight at the IIA Awards in Accra. Country Director Clarence Nate is optimistic a virtual platform with over 5,000 multinationals across Africa will open up opportunities for small-scale businesses to access other markets beyond Ghana.
Access to markets, access to skills, and access to finance. These are some of the major challenges SMEs across Africa face. So we are working with partners, both in the private sector mainly, but also quasi-government, as well as DFI institutions, to be able to provide a necessary intervention to level the playing field for SMEs in order to make them more competitive. So we celebrate that entrepreneurial excellence, both at an organizational level and at an individual level. This year, what you'll find is that, because I think it's a well-known fact that 2019 was a very difficult year. And in a way, it reflects in the submissions. In one sense, because when I say that, what I mean is if you look at the kind of performance, the business performance of the SMEs in 2019 versus the previous year, you see stronger growth in 2018 than 2019, which should not surprise many because of the challenges. But the great thing is that we still have a lot of SMEs who, in spite of the difficult environment, are still registering strong growth. Which means that these are resilient SMEs, very resourceful, and probably will find a lot of creative and innovative ways to still be growing at these sort of extraordinary rates. So, and I think in a sense, I'm glad that we have that opportunity to reward such excellence in very turbulent and volatile times.
Why would these SMEs, or how did these SMEs survive? Did they survive on innovation, technology, and should this kind of thing be what should send the ripple effect into the whole of the SME economy?
Well, what we found, at least with the SMEs that are doing well, is that these are SMEs who have always at the beginning had a long view in terms of clear business plan in place. Have sort of also got a good gauge on some of their forecasting, and have sort of anticipated through risk management, identified what could go wrong and where opportunities are, and they've managed their business in that manner so that when there are shocks to the system, as there will always be, they found very creative and innovative ways to mitigate the risk and impact on their business.
The year 2020, which kinds of businesses will survive, and what kind of interventions should the SME scope be taking a look at?
What for me is the real game-changing opportunity is the fact that within the same year, we're going to have operationalization of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And then that suddenly opens up opportunities beyond Ghana. To SMEs, who obviously, like I said, play a key role in the economy. So the focus on an access to market is no longer about Ghana.
All right, so David Ofosu-Dorte is one of the leading consultants behind the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and he's expected to splash sheet on the theme, preparing local businesses for regional market opportunities at tonight's event. Now, moving on, Aker Energy has announced the appointment of Mrs. Khadija Amoa as Country Director of Aker Energy Ghana Limited, effective 1st February 2020. The appointment follows Aker Energy's strategy to strengthen the company's local presence and management in Ghana. Aker says Mrs. Amwa will be appointed to the executive management team of Aker AS in addition to heading the country's office in Aker Energy Ghana. She will also work closely with affiliated companies AGM Petroleum Ghana Limited and Aker Ghana Investments Company AGIC in Ghana, two companies with the same majority owner as Aker Energy, and hold directorships in both companies. In response, Mrs. Amwa said she is extremely pleased to join Aker Energy at such an important part of the company's history. She said building on the Aker Energy Group's 180 years industrial heritage, the firm will, together with AGM and AGIC, take the lead to develop Ghana's oil and gas resources and related industries. Mrs. Amwa, a Ghanaian citizen, is a lawyer by training and holds degrees in law and political science, a master's degree in international business, and also awaits the award of a postgraduate diploma in strategy and innovation. Prior to joining Aker, Mrs. Amwa was a senior foreign lawyer at Clifford Chance, Germany, one of the largest law firms in the world. The National Lottery Authority has crowned a 64-year-old farmer as its first jackpot winner of a new game, Dewa 539. The winner, by name Francis Palua from Navrongo in the Upper East region, staked his lotto with only 2 cedis via the short code provided. The lucky draw took place on the 17th of January this year after it was launched in November last year. There's more in this report.
Mr. Pualua won the ultimate prize of the Dewa 539 game at a cost of only 2 Ghana cedis with the 5 selected numbers, matching exactly the 5 numbers that were drawn at the NLA's Brennan Hall at 7 p.m. This comes as an excitement after the jackpot prize grew from a minimum amount of 100,000 Ghana cedis over just 7 weeks to 126,000 Ghana cedis, during which tens of thousands of Ghanaians tried to win this daily jackpot game. Amos Pualua, the son of Francis Pualua, spoke to Joy Business.
My friend told me about Dewa, that it is real. He won 40 cedis. And I said, oh, let me also try. Maybe I'll win something. And I've been playing for about 1 month now. And by God's grace, I won. So I'm very proud. The family is proud. Everybody is proud about it.
It was a moment of drumming and dancing as the Pualua family could not hide their excitement.
I welcome the winner of the jackpot, Dewa 539. I'm sure his family's life will transform from today. 126,000 Ghana cedis is a lot of money.
Chief Executive of the National Lottery Authority, Kofi Osei Ameyao, said the occasion is an indication that lottery is real and contributes to the growth and development of the country.
Our testimony that we are not here to play or to joke. Every Ghanaian who is strapped of cash or who needs money, just exchange that 2 cedis of yours and it would be a winner, just like our friend from Navrongo.
The Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, GREDA, says it is hopeful of fixing the country's housing deficit in the coming years when their proposal to the president is given the needed attention at a brief press conference to outline plans for the year. The acting executive director, Samia Megaibo, expressed optimism they can provide over 200,000 affordable housing annually.
Actually met with the president himself last year around, I think, April. And we had a frank discussion where the president eventually tasked GREDA to try and come up with affordable housing. And in fact, to quote him, he said, you are not worth my attention if you cannot deliver more than 20,000 housing a year. And so eventually he tasked us that he's expecting GREDA to come up with a proposal that could develop a minimum of 20,000 housing a year. So we also came back, sat down. It took a while because we are all aware of where certain adverts, certain short-cutting ceremonies are done in the name of affordable housing projects, and it ends there. After the short-cutting, nothing happens. So Greda didn't want to join that fray. So we sat down, looked at the issues, and critically did analysis of what has happened in the past, what can actually take place. And we went back to the president with our proposal.
Also, just before we go, news just coming in says the management of the Coca-Cola bottling company has refused to agree to demands of the workers to reinstate the former country director, Seth Eduba, even after the staff embarked on a 3-day sit-down strike. We'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins. All right, so that's the press release that has just come in. It says the Coca-Cola bottling company wishes to address some misconceptions raised in the media in the course of the recent labor agitations that occurred in our factory. It has been agreed that the company and its former country manager will part ways, and we are currently negotiating the terms of separation in complete compliance with the law. We trust that these negotiations will be concluded amicably. The decision was taken by the management of our parent company, Equatorial Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Now, whoever is chosen by the